absolutely nothing to do with singing. It goes back to the Greek word that just meant group. Moravian congregations at the time organized themselves into groups that they thought had common interests. In modern churches, the closest things would be men's groups and women's groups and youth groups and Sunday school classes, because it was from within your choir that you received your religious instruction, and each one had its own sort of a chaplain, for the women, and also a business manager. But this is also your social group and your support group, the people that were there to help you if you needed assistance for any reason. This was a congregation town though, so you had to be a member of the congregation to even live here. So these choirs, these groups were much more woven into the operation of the town than would be their modern church equivalents. First ones here in Salem were for school kids, the little girls that were in here a bit ago. So at age 6, everybody starts school. And at that point, you would become officially a member of either the little boys choir or the little girls choir. And those were their tunes that I played a bit ago. It was kind of typical at the time that boys and girls went to school separately. So the boys' schools is building on the corner over here, and that's being restored by Old Salem. When it's done, you'll be able to see what school was like in those days. Because it's going to be an interpretive building. It should be a lot of fun. Because the curriculum for both boys and girls is the same. The little boys' choir and the little girls' choir grew into the older boys' choir or the older girls' choir. You're going to sort of continue your education, but in your apprenticeship. If you're a boy, you would be apprenticed to a tradesman to learn a trade by which you could support your family. If you were a girl, you would be apprenticed to master craftsman to learn all the crafts and skills you needed to set up and operate your household. You might have been living in one of the 2 choir houses, particularly if you were apprenticed to someone working out of the houses, or maybe you work from here in town and you needed someplace to live. You might be living with the family to whom you were apprenticed, or you might be living at home, especially if you were either planning on following the family business or maybe farming out there or something. Age 18, then you officially became a single brother or a single sister. Now you're eligible to marry, and the way it worked here, you couldn't marry before then. The congregation wanted to make sure that you had finished your education and you could support your family, and they weren't going to let you get married until you could demonstrate that. Now, of course, at the time, the man was expected to support his family by way of his trade. So when a young man finished his apprenticeship, unless he was already making pretty good money, he might have to wait a while if he wanted to get married. So what he could do is finish his apprenticeship and live here as a single brother while he's growing his business. Once he made some money then, if he wanted to build a shop for his business, he'd have to go to the church and ask to lease some land because they owned all 100,000 acres of it. Only a little bit smaller than modern-day Forsyth County. Build a shop, that would actually be his, even though it was on leased land. And then once he becomes successful, if he wanted to get married, he'd go back to the church and ask permission. In Moravian communities, there was no pressure on either men or women to marry. If you wanted to get married, that was fine. If you wanted, they were okay, the church is okay with that, and they got married, then they would join the married couples choir, the married couples group. And that's where they would stay unless they lost a spouse, in which case they would join the widow's choir or the widower's choir. And there were support structures under these to help you through rough places in life. So for instance, here in Salem, there was a widow's house, which was sort of the ancestor of the modern day Salem town out here. This building actually became the widow's house later in its career. The choir system, this series of groups into which the congregation was organized, was a pretty big deal. It's certainly how the educational and support systems worked here. So, being a congregation town, there were special church services that celebrated the movement from one choir to another. It's like moving from one condition of life to another. They would be given colored ribbons that indicated what their new choir membership was to be. And of course, we don't think much about ribbon now. It's everywhere and it's kind of cheap. But back then, this wasn't made here, so it had to be brought in from outside. So it was kind of special. Plus, if you look at how we're dressed, fairly plain. And there wasn't anything special about the style of clothing. It would have been fairly typical for a late 18th century trade town anywhere. But because in Moravian theology there was no separation between sacred and secular, everything you did was to the glory of God. So you were expected to lead your life fairly modestly and certainly not call attention to yourself. So you won't find a whole lot of decoration, if you will. You will find the ribbons though. As you walk around Salem, look for the women interpreters. And you'll notice they all wear these little tight white hats. And the hat is called a Halle, which just means cap in German. But it ties with her choir ribbon. So if you look at the ribbons in the women interpreters' hats, you can tell what their choir membership would be. You don't see too many of these. A little girl, when she started school, would get a bright red ribbon. When she then became an older girl, and now she's in her apprenticeship, she would get a burgundy ribbon. At age 18, when she officially became a single sister, now she's eligible to marry, she'd get a pink ribbon. If she got married then, as part of the wedding ceremony, she'd be given a blue ribbon. And that's what she would keep unless she became a widow, in which case she would get a white ribbon. But of course, if she remarried, she got a blue ribbon.